Oi gente, tudo bem? Hoje no Jogatina de Quinta eu consegui uma entrevista com um autor que está fazendo bastante sucesso ultimamente. É o Rob Daviau. Para quem não conhece esse nome, ele é o cara que inventou Legacy. Ele fez o primeiro Legacy dele com o Risk em 2011 e posteriormente ele pegou e fez o Pandemic Legacy Season 1, que eu já expliquei como é que se joga aqui no canal. Vou colocar o link da explicação para o jogo aqui. E com esses dois jogos ele criou toda uma nova forma de se jogar. Uma forma em que um jogo influencia as outras partidas, à medida que você vai mudando como que se joga. Então ele criou um mecanismo completamente novo que ninguém tinha inventado até então. Eu vou falar um pouquinho com ele sobre a história dele, sobre como é que ele veio parar nos jogos e sobre os desenvolvimentos dos jogos dele, ok? Vamos lá para a entrevista?
So, first of all, thanks for your time to this interview for Brazil. And, well, let's start with one interesting thing. You began your development as a game designer in Hasbro, yeah? 2000, I think, is the first game that I saw.
Yes, I started in November of 1998. So probably my first game to come out that I had anything to do with it might have been 1999, actually, but 99 or 2000, hard to say. It's been a long time.
Perhaps this is Strategos versions. You had...
yeah, that would be 2000. I did some other things where my name wasn't associated before that, more like a Monopoly game.
Yeah, you have actually many iterations for these old games. So you have many Risk games, or variations of Risk games, of Clue games, Game of Life, these old classics from Hasbro, and you put some new life over them. Can you talk about a little about this experience?
Yeah, from my time at Hasbro, which was mostly last decade, Hasbro was moving from a place where they were trying to do a lot of new games every year to, well, let's do new versions of games that people already know. So rather than come out with a whole new mystery game, just come out with a new version of Clue. Because people know Clue is a mystery game and you don't have to explain that. So they were kind of going more and more in that direction over the 14 years I was there. So I started out working on more new things. And then as the years went by, they'd say, we need another Game of Life, we need another Risk, we need another Clue. Or they would tell me, Clue Harry Potter, Risk Star Wars. And so I just kept doing versions of the same game, which is a great way to learn how to design games and try to keep finding something new or better out of something that's been around for a while. You know, and then eventually around, when did I leave? 2012, I was ready to start doing some new things.
That's thing, the pick up old games or games that are in market for a long time is what you are making now for restoration games also. You pick old games or old no games and make it better.
Yeah, it's very similar, and the president of the company, Justin, asked me to join him in the company because of my work at Hasbro. He said, you did a lot of this already, we're going to kind of do the same thing. We're going to find an old game, and then it's my job to figure out what worked, and now what doesn't work anymore, and how we sort of take an old game and make it into a modern game. So that was intentional. Justin realized that I had done a lot of this at Hasbro, and I had the skills to do it for restoration games, and I really enjoy doing it. I like sort of breaking apart a game almost like a detective or a forensic scientist and saying, like, this works and this doesn't, and this probably worked in 1985 but it doesn't now, and
doesn't now,
kind of putting it all back together and trying to polish it. I really like that act of analysis and design and development.
Very nice. And as far as I heard, the whole idea from the Legacy, or at least the first idea from the Legacy games, came when you were searching or in search of brainstorming for new ideas for a Clue game. Is that true?
That is correct. Yeah, we were talking about what to do with Clue, you know, in a very big way. What to do with new games, new ideas, TV shows, movies, and somewhere in that brainstorm I said something about, you know, inviting the same people over to dinner every week where they just kill someone seems like a bad idea. And then that was the beginning of an idea for that became Legacy. and I tried to make it into a Clue game first, but Hasbro was like, this is too much. So it went away for about 6 months, and then I brought it back as an idea for Risk, and they said yes, and there it started.
How long take to develop the Risk Legacy, the first Legacies, 2011 published?
A year and a half. But I had done a lot of Risk games up to that point, so I knew what Risk could do and what Risk couldn't do, so that part was almost easy.
Mm-hmm.
Right, like powers and factions and cards and objectives, that had been done in Star Wars and it had been done in Risk 2210. Like, I had a lot of tools in the toolbox, so I just could focus on how to do the legacy part, which was great. And then that made it much easier to figure out because of 10 years of experience of working on Risk.
Mm-hmm. Do you have the feedback from the market when the Risk Legacy came to market? Because from Risk Legacy to the second Legacy game in the market, that is Pandemic, it's about 3 years. 3 years later, 4 years later. It took a while until another Legacy game came in market. It take long to the buyers, to the people that plays, to take this whole idea of changing the game.
I think so. I think people were surprised by Risk Legacy and thought it was different, but it was still Risk, which isn't a very popular game for gamers. And so it was more of like an interesting experiment. And I suspect, but I don't know, that a number of people maybe tried to make a Legacy game and then said, these just take a lot of time. I can probably design 3 or 4 games in the time it would take to do one of these. And so maybe put it aside, and then when Pandemic came out, that caught people's attention, and now people are willing to put the time into doing them, like Charterstone or something like that.
Yeah.
Although I still tend to be involved with many of them. I just happen to have the right skill. Besides being my idea, I happen to have the right skill set of you have to kind of know production, and you have to know storytelling, and you have to be able to work on a game and break it down, like I was saying before, and think of different expansions and places it could go. So I just happen to create this genre around things I'm already good at.
Mm-hmm.
And so I tend to do more of them.
You just talked something very interesting, the storytelling part.
Yes.
It's very interesting because I have my Pandemic Legacy. I played all the Pandemic Legacy Session 1, and I remember when I must rip it out, my first card, or when I must write down over the cards, I have shivers. Oh, I doesn't want to do that. But in the end, it was very interesting. The whole storytelling and the hookups from the history from 1 month to the other, and you want to know what happens then, and the whole story was amazingly created from beginning to the end. And perhaps that's the part that took the people really to the game. It was really enjoyable to know how the story develops.
Yeah, that's my background. For a while I thought I was going to be a television writer, and my passion as a kid was not board games but role-playing games. And I also read a lot of comic books. So you take television, you take comic books, you take role-playing books. My interest has always been like telling a story. I sort of naturally fell into, here's something I kind of always wanted to do, right? I wanted to sit down and write a 12-part adventure for a role-playing game. And so it's taking a little bit of all of those things and just putting them into board game form.
Mm-hmm. And you use this whole storytelling in your previous designs also. For instance, the Betrayal, and last year the Mountains of Madness is very interesting because the storytelling part of the game is a very, very important part of the game. If you're playing with people that are not in the mood to go in the storytelling part, the game is half fun only. You have a full fun game or real good game if you have the right people that are willing to go in this storytelling part of the games.
Yeah, I mean, it's very hard to make a game, or make a good game. It's very easy to make a bad one. Sometimes you work very hard and still end up with a bad one, but and so when working on a game, I have to make a game that continues to be something I would love to play, or feels different, or feels like something that represents me.
Mm-hmm.
That's why when I've sat down to do some more traditional Euro games, you know, with like cubes and where the theme is and the storytelling isn't as strong, and I don't finish them because as soon as they get hard to make, which all games at some point are hard to make, I kind of lose focus. I don't know what to do next. Like there's nothing for me in there to do it, and so I just say, well, I'll put it on the shelf for now and finish it later, and then I never finish it.
I've heard you are working right now in at least 2 legacy games. One is for the Werewolf, Ultimate Werewolf with Ted Alspach, and the other is a legacy version for the Betrayal.
Yes.
Can you talk about those projects, or is it secret right now?
I can talk about Betrayal a little bit more, but I would be more happy to come back on and talk about it, say, in October, because it should be out this fall. So September, October. So that is, if you played Betrayal at House on the Hill, which is a game, wasn't the original inventor, but I did a lot of design and development on it back at Hasbro. Still one of my favorite projects I ever worked on. So that tells, you know, a little short story about a haunted house. And what we tried to do was take the short story and turn it more into like a chapter in a book. And so what you end up with is a 13-chapter book, each one sort of moving forward in time. So it starts 350 years ago in this little tiny house, and it just gets bigger and bigger, and then, you know, there's a story that happens in every chapter. So yes, your chapter 4 will be different than my chapter 4, but the main points of the story will be communicated to both of us. And then when you're done, you will have a version of Betrayal, and I will have a version of Betrayal where we've sort of told the story of our house and how it got there, and then it is completely replayable for as long as you like. In fact, you will only have seen 14 of the haunts out of 52. So most of it you haven't even seen yet. You sort of just get the first 14 games, I'm telling you a story, and then after that it's just sort of random, whatever happens. And that's been taking a lot of time, and I've been having a lot of fun with it, and I'm wrapping that project up. I'm also, I worked on Ultimate Werewolf Legacy with Ted a couple years ago, and I thought the project maybe wasn't going to happen or did happen, and then he talked to me at Essen this past year and said, no, we're going to do it for next year. So it's sort of, he'd been working on it, and now I'm looking at it again, just trying to revise the story and get some like final details in there. It's actually on my list of things to do in the next day or two, and see, and he's been changing mostly the mechanics, and I want to make sure that the story still makes sense around it.
Again, the storytelling part of the game.
I am telling a lot of stories these days. I'm almost like a television writer more than a game designer these days, which is a fun little diversion.
What is your favorite board game? Do you have a favorite board game, not for your own design?
Absolutely not.
No!
No. I tend not to have favorite anythings. I don't have a favorite song. I don't have a favorite food. I don't have a favorite color. I don't have a favorite game. My question usually back is, who am I playing with? How old am I? How much time do I have? You know, the answer really is my favorite gaming experience was playing first edition Dungeons and Dragons in my basement with my friends and my brother at age 12.
Wow.
That's what made me fall in love with games and story and just summer days wasting away, where my father would come home like, wait, there's a beautiful day and you were in the basement all day? Like, get outside. So nothing will ever capture that sort of magic that I had at that time. But I play games now and I like them, but it's hard to, I don't play them like I'm 12. I play them like I'm 47 and design them for them, right? So I like that rule book. Graphics are nice. Oh, this cardboard's pretty thick. That was fun. Who's the publisher on this? Who's the editor? You know, did they kickstart this? Like, I think about it, I analyze it rather than enjoy it. So yes, I enjoy it, but back when I was a kid, I could just play all day and never think twice about it.
Can you say something for the people here from Brazil that like your games?
Well, thank you. The fact that there are people in Brazil who know who I am and like my games still continues to be a surprise and a delightful one. You know, I just work here out of my house and do stuff on the computer, and then one day I just send a bunch of files to a publisher, and it goes out into the world, sometimes 6 months, 12 months, 24 months later. So the fact that you're asking me questions from Brazil and people are playing them is thank you is really about all I can say. It's nice to know that the work I do finds people all over the world who enjoy playing.
Thanks a lot for your time and for this interview.
Thank you.
And perhaps we will see again in Essen this year.
I will be there most years. I'll probably be there this year.
Ok.
Bom, gente, eu espero que vocês tenham gostado da entrevista. Se gostaram, não deixe de curtir o vídeo. E se inscrevam aí no canal para não perder mais vídeos de regras, de variantes e de entrevistas que a gente vira e mexe tem publicado, tá bom? Um grande abraço e até a próxima! Galera, obrigado por ter assistido o vídeo. Se vocês gostaram dele, não deixe de curtir ele e se inscrevam aqui na página para não perder nenhum dos vídeos que a gente está postando regularmente explicando regras e variantes. Também deem uma olhada lá na nossa página no Facebook. Um abraço e até a próxima!